So I have incredible excitement about AI, and I believe so deeply that occupational therapy must embrace it for two reasons. One, because it will, if utilized and designed in the best way, it will make our jobs so much stronger while not adding more energy, effort, exhaustion that we're already pouring into it. And then on the flip side of that, I believe that the only way that AI is going to be able to achieve being a meaningful, powerful investment in health and wellness is if the occupational therapy profession is present in the design, the development, and the implementation.
In this episode of the Brave OT podcast, I'm thrilled to bring you a highly motivated conversation with two trailblazing occupational therapists, Alyson Stover and Karen Jacobs. In this conversation, we get into their courageous journey in reshaping the landscape of occupational therapy by putting a very important occupational therapy stamp on artificial intelligence. We'll refer to it as AI throughout the conversation. Alyson shares her efforts in embracing bravery through accountability, advocacy, and self-care, while Karen highlights her pivotal role in intentionality and the exciting intersection of occupational therapy and artificial intelligence. We'll explore the transformative potential of AI in healthcare, including the groundbreaking Coro app, which is revolutionizing therapy for children. Now, when we get to that part, I encourage you to listen through the lens of your own area of practice. How might you hear what they're doing with this technology and consider how you could embrace AI similarly or differently in your work? We have a great discussion ahead about how OTs have a unique lens, skill set, and collaborative nature that is highly valuable in AI development right now, which positions us to become leaders in the AI revolution. I know you'll feel inspired by their personal acts of bravery and their dedication to advancing the field. Stay tuned as we also touch on the importance of setting boundaries, leading into emotional intelligence, authenticity, and the invaluable connections forged through global OT networks like OT for OT. Did you know that it doesn't stand for Occupational Therapists for Occupational Therapy? Whether you're an experienced practitioner or a student, this episode is packed with insights on embracing innovation, taking risks, and advocating for the future of occupational therapy. Don't miss out on this powerful discussion that's sure to ignite passion and courage in your OT journey. You're listening to the Brave OT podcast with me, Carlin Neek. This podcast is all about empowering occupational therapists to step up, level up, blaze some trails, and maybe engage in a little conscious rebellion in service of our profession, our clients, our work, our businesses, and living our mission wholeheartedly. We are all about keeping it real, doing hard things, unhustling, being curious, exploring, growing through our challenges, and finding joy, fulfillment, and vitality as we do so. Really, we're OTing ourselves and each other. I hope you love this episode. Before we jump into today's episode, let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Jane, a clinic management software and EMR. Whether you're just starting to do your research or you've been contemplating switching your software for a while now, the Jane team understands that the process can feel intimidating. That's why their goal is to provide you with all the onboarding resources you need to make the switch as smooth as possible. Jane offers a personalized call to set up your account, a free date import, and a variety of online resources to get you up and running quickly. And if you need a helping hand along the way, you'll have access to unlimited phone, email, and chat support included with your Jane subscription. If you're interested in learning more, book a one-on-one demo at jane.app/switch. And if you decide to make the switch, don't forget to use the code VITALITY at sign up to receive a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Welcome, both of you. Welcome, Alyson and Karen. I'm so grateful and humbled to have you here on the Brave OT podcast.
Thanks for having us. We're delighted to be here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Would you be comfortable starting with telling a little bit about yourself? Alyson, would you like to go first?
Sure, I will go first. And I want to just echo Karen and say thank you for having us. I always think it's this like exciting pinch me moment when you are talking on a podcast that you listen to, right? It's like this weird, exciting event. But I'm Alyson Stover, and I am an occupational therapist. I have a private pediatric practice in a rural county in Pennsylvania. Um, I also work at the University of Pittsburgh in their Department of Occupational Therapy as an associate professor. And I am beginning my final year in my tenure as the president of the American Occupational Therapy Association.
Wow. Talk about pinch me. You listen to my podcast, your history and experience and the way you're contributing to OT. Really, I really feel very grateful to get to have conversations with you, this one included. And Karen, your turn. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's exciting to be the guest because I host two podcasts. So it's fun to have questions asked of me. So thank you for that opportunity. I am a professor at Boston University. I'm also the Associate Dean of Digital Learning and Innovation and it's a clinical professor, but I'm also the program director of the online post-professional doctorate in occupational therapy. Very proud of that. Had a consulting practice for a very, very long time in the area of ergonomics. And I'm an early adopter. And so I love embracing new technology. And you and I cross paths in some ways with a group of people that we both know the beloved OT for OT. And
Yes.
that's a perfect example of embracing technology.
Oh, yes. We had a little pre-conversation a couple days ago about that crossover, and I had no idea. OT for OT and the suite for OT sites have really been influential in the way I've been able to shape my business outside of the traditional boundaries of my private practice and being able to connect with OTs and have such a ready-made, curious and willing and open and collaborative group of international OTs to connect with has made such a difference in being able to develop services and this whole coaching and mentorship I do with international OTs. And so I had no idea you were behind that. That is so exciting. And I'm so grateful to you and the group of people who created that.
Well, thank you. And I thought I would just give a little bit of background on that because
Sure.
OT does stand for something. It's the online technology for occupational therapy. And that's what it stands for. And it was founded by Marilee, Sarah, Angela, Anita, Susan, and myself. And we came together in different ways, and we're all in different countries. A few of them were in New Zealand. One was in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the UK, the US. And we came together to form OT for OT. And our goal was to help occupational therapy practitioners and students to embrace technology. And we're talking about 2009. And so our first venture that we did to the community was to have something that we called 24VX. Okay, ahead of our time because we're all used to Zoom and being on technology, but we created this 24-hour virtual exchange. And we invited people from all over the world, and we all took turns. So we might start in Australia, and then we would go around the world, and someone else would pick up, and then another one of us would pick up, and it was remarkable. So we are very excited about, we think, maybe the beginnings of the virtual world in communication of the evidence and the science in occupational therapy. So you gave me the opportunity to talk about this, and it's a great memory.
Oh, I online technology for OT. I thought it was OT for OT, OTs supporting OTs. That's not it. That's amazing.
It is in essence,
Yeah.
but it's online technology for occupational therapy because in the 2009 or so, we really weren't embracing technology. And some are early adopters, but a lot of people sort of sat back and said, I'm not sure what I want to do. And so we really wanted to be a catalyst
Mm.
to get the occupational therapy profession globally on board with exchanging our knowledge and skills. And we thought the best way to do that was forming OT for OT and then having our 24-hour virtual exchange. And we did many of them. We collected data on it, we published on that as well. So we're all still around. And as you said, OT for OT has a suite of different groups on Facebook, and you're active in one of them in particular.
Yes, I'm quite active in OT for OT and MH for OT, mental health for OT. I do a lot of talking there. My private practice is in mental health, and I've had that since 2007, also before a lot of the technology that we use. And yeah, I definitely appreciate and notice too, because it's international, actually, there are a lot of UK OTs in that one. And I noticed those themes where, due to our different healthcare systems, there's different representation of or ability to engage fully in mental health OT across different countries. So it's always interesting to see how these conversations come up. And then you have to check, which country are you in? And I can see where that might be more of a limitation for you, for instance, in the US compared to Canada, Australia, or New Zealand, where we have more socialized healthcare. So it's very, very interesting to have this international perspective because we can feel really siloed, or if our frame of reference is very small, we lose sight of what is regulation by employer or payer or program, and lose sight of the fact that it's not OT that limits. Sometimes but being connected to other OTs who we do share a fundamentally same frame of reference about occupation and helping people. And it starts to help to tease out where people are getting stuck or where some of those limitations might lie.
You're totally right. And I really think it enriches our lives to learn from each other and we become global citizens. So I want to give a perfect example of technology. Anita is in Australia, the Sunshine Coast. And I sent her a WhatsApp earlier today. She was sleeping, but now she's up. And I said, do you have the exact numbers on OT for me? I just got her WhatsApp. So thank you, Anita. OT for OT has 33,800 members. We have 80 active groups that have branched from our original OT for OT with a total of 200,706 members across all groups.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. Yeah. And it's being brave, and let me say how that became brave. I was at the Canadian Association of Occupational Therapy conference a while ago. I think must have been 2008. I've done some work with the association, and they, through my journal work, and they invited me there to get the Award of Merit, which I'm so honored. And so I went to different workshops,
Yeah.
and I was intrigued by this workshop, and I don't remember the title, but Anita was giving it. I was so inspired, and I didn't know Anita beforehand. I was brave in going up to her and saying, I want to work with you. And that started our friendship and working relationship that
Wow.
has gone on for a long time.
Wow. I love that. And that's a neat tie-in. You just never know, right? You walk up and strike up a conversation where you feel a kindred spirit professionally and go, yeah, this needs to go somewhere. And we don't get that when we're doing online conferences, right? There's really something pretty special and magical about it in person. Alyson and I got to meet twice in person, actually. And I kind of walked up to you a little bit bravely and said, I think I'm the only Canadian here. So can I, on behalf, somehow feel like I could represent all of Canada in that moment? Can I just say how inspired I felt by what you speak, Alyson, in such a way that is just rallies our inner brave OT that just wants to go and make a big difference.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you were brave and came up to me. I would say, even thinking about bravery, right? When I was thinking about when am I brave, it is when I'm up and speaking because there is a passion and a fire that I believe lives in everyone across the globe who
Mhm,
pursues this profession, who commits to learning how to do it and then sharing it with consumers and clients in so many different spaces. And sometimes we don't always know, right? If that passion and that fire that is sparked inside of us is really representative of what our community is experiencing, what our community wants to see move forward. And so I always have a moment of pause and try to build up a place of bravery before I walk out or before I speak to say, trust in the profession and trust in how you experience the profession because scary. It's scary to share your love and your passion and not quite know if it's the same love and passion that your peers and your colleagues are experiencing too. So I
mm.
appreciate that you found some inspiration, which is great because it always seems to take a tremendous amount of courage to walk up and say those words.
And
You know,
I oh,
oh,
go ahead.
Allison just made me think of a beautiful quote, and I wanna share that if that's okay, that Nelson Mandela shared, and it's so wise, and I quote, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." And that's what that courage in being brave, I think, is so critical.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. And I think it is something that is definitely required of OTs because so much of the work we do is it appears subjective on the outside. It appears that we're approaching just with common sense. Anybody else could do this. And so often OTs lose sight of the fact that our value is our way of seeing things, our framework, the way we get curious, the way we observe, the way we see things in context, the way we see people as whole people inside of their context, social and environment, and all of the things. And I a lot of the OTs that I support are really struggling with self doubt and struggling to lean into that uncertainty. And actually, that was one of my favorite at the CAOT conference that Allison and I were just at in Halifax this year. And a few weeks ago, there was a session on uncertainty that was really, really, really inspiring. And it was uncertainty in the context of education, but truly it goes beyond we're lifelong learners. We're always learning and this sense of I think OTs do a really good job of getting really curious with our clients in service of helping solve a problem. And we get that. We can see, "Oh, okay, that worked out." But I think I see a lot of self-doubt coming in when standing up and saying, "Well, I think we need to maybe look at this differently, develop this differently, shift this program, bring another perspective." And when we get sort of out of us and our client, I see a lot more courage required because sometimes it's like, oh well, I don't know. Does anybody agree? I don't know. It's hard to stand up for innovation and change, and it's necessary.
I agree completely, and sometimes we're frightened to make a mistake and fail, but
Yeah.
we learn so much from that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I remember many years ago when I was thinking about some of the professions that I had might want to do. And I was young, and my mother, she taught special education for individuals with learning disabilities, as well as with what was classified then in the US as emotional disturbance. And she had seventh and eighth graders, right? Challenging age as it is.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to her about the various different things that really interested me in healthcare. And I have been interested in occupational therapy for since I was about 10 or 11 years old. And I said, but mom, like, I don't want to walk into a session and I don't want to spend this individual's time, energy, and effort. And what if it's the wrong thing? What if it's not what's going to bring about the change that individual wants or that individual needs? What if I target the wrong thing? And she said, Allison, never forget that medicine, health, and well being is a practice. And if you don't fail, then you're actually not doing it.
Mm.
And so when you walk in and you have the best session of your life, be joyful and grateful that you had knowledge that influenced how you could build that just right session. But when you fail, remember that practice requires failure because you need to learn what you don't yet know. And so pause and think about, what is it that I am to learn in this failure that will make me better for everybody moving forward. And it's really those moments when you about to walk into a client's room, or those moments when you're about to say, no, I'm ready to say that this is what OT needs to be involved in, and say it loudly to anyone willing to listen. It's that pause of saying, hey, I might not say everything right, might not be the best session, but I'm practicing with what I know. And if I fail, I'll learn and it'll make it even better next time. And so I think that is, it kind of aligns with what Karen was sharing of Nelson Mandela's comment, right? Like, it isn't not having fear, it's being courageous amongst that fear, and then being confident in what we know and what we see and how we say it. I think those are the pieces that can really help us to move forward. And I think that, avenues like OT for OT is the perfect example of how we can be in a community that says, you're not thinking this alone. I so I have incredible excitement about AI, and I believe so deeply that occupational therapy must embrace it for two reasons. One, because it will, if utilized and designed in the best way, it will make our jobs so much stronger while not adding more energy, effort, exhaustion that we're already pouring into it. And then on the flip side of that, I believe that the only way that AI is going to be able to achieve being a meaningful, powerful investment in health and wellness is if the occupational therapy profession is present in the design, the development, and the implementation. And so we owe it to ourselves so that we can have the opportunity to practice in a way that is stronger without overwhelming us. And we owe it to the consumers of occupational therapy to be so heavily involved in the design and rollout of artificial intelligence, and the ways that it can impact healthcare interventions, that we owe it to them. Because without our lens, without those very things we were just talking about, it could never be designed to really see and capture all the things that we see and capture.
So that's really, Allison, that was so eloquent. I think if we're looking at how we can impart occupational therapy practitioners and students being brave right now, it's to open themselves up to all the possibilities in artificial intelligence. And I think if you step back, we're not talking about being looking at Gen GPT or a Gemini or Copilot. We're really looking at artificial intelligence again that can be brought into our interventions that we can help design, like Alyson said, and to work collaboratively. So I want to challenge your listeners and all occupational therapy practitioners and students around the globe to embrace how they can see and be brave with embracing artificial intelligence so that we can have a revolution in occupational therapy where we're the leaders in the use of artificial intelligence to really make a difference in healthcare, which will have a positive impact on all the people we serve.
Mm. Yes, yes. I really feel this. I feel that we have a responsibility to be early adopters and shape it. It could be easy to sit back and let the kinks work out and watch what happens, but we do bring such a unique way of seeing the world, and AI is learning. And if we can be shaping the way it's used and the way it's seeing people, I think it's so much better. It's so much a better resource, right? We're used to working with technologies or models that don't quite fit exactly how we work. And so being a part of this revolution and making AI really good and fit really well because of our unique way of seeing people in context. I think we do have this responsibility, and it's a little scary because it's uncertain and it's new. But OT is not new to innovation. OT isn't new to technology. We have always been innovating and we have always been using technology right back to our World War II early trailblazers, right?
World War
Technology.
One. Go
World
back
War
in
One, yes, yes.
And it's interesting because I was reading a book and I'm looking around at my mess of a desk with a billion books on it because I'm always reading. But it's a book written by a physician very recently, about a year ago, discussing like the transformation that AI will bring to healthcare delivery. And that really it's an inevitable sort of route or road or pathway that's going to emerge. And the author made this really incredible statement. And he said, the profession that will excel at leading this movement is the profession that is best equipped in collaboration and working in a collaborative capacity. And I think about that, and I think this is where occupational therapy has been the most incredible profession included in healthcare teams because we are natural collaborators. Like just that idea, right? When we walk in and we talk to our client, it's not about even the idea of let me hear about what you need to do and want to do and then give you some of the resources or knowledge that I have. It's literally walking next to our clients and saying, let's try it together, right? And then thinking about when we look into the world of practice itself, particularly as I look in the United States, right? And in home health, in outpatient pediatrics, right? We often see things like co treatments, but the consistent profession that's always there is occupational therapy. It might be OT and speech. It might be OT and PT. It might be OT and nursing. It might be OT and an educator or a paraprofessional. But the consistent collaborator, the consistent member of the team is the occupational therapy practitioner. And so, if AI to really have the ability to affect outcomes and create health and wellness is going to require the profession that knows how to collaborate best, then it's almost like, yes, we must be brave, but we must be brave in accepting our responsibility. We have a responsibility to be the leaders in this, and it will be a little bit scary and sometimes a lot of it scary, but we will do it together. And it's our responsibility because of the lens we use, because of our unique method of collaboration.
Allison, I totally agree. So one of the things that I think we all need to be brave in anything we do is to learn how to advocate, to learn how to communicate, to know how to define occupational therapy, and to be able to share and communicate so other people understand what it is. And then they begin to advocate for occupational therapy being something that they receive. I do think being brave is embracing innovation. And AI certainly is the innovation that we need to embrace. And we need to be the people out there conducting research so that we have evidence to support the efficacy of what we're doing with AI and any kind of innovation that we're using. I love that you said about the interprofessional collaboration. That's so important. And we need to be able to articulate clearly our place there, our distinct value. Um, Lifelong learning, you were talking about that at the beginning. That's really important because there's that continuous knowledge. We all need to be, I think, AI literate. That's basic, knowing the terminology and all of that, and being part of that. And it's part of also challenging the status quo of what's going on. We really need to be out there and visible and saying, we know what's best. And just like your mom said, maybe we'll learn some lessons from that, but at least we'll be out there trying. And I think that's so important. I want to just
Yeah.
add one more thing about being brave. We need to take care of ourselves. We take care of so many people. And I think one of the messages I'd like to convey to your listeners is to be brave and prioritize your well being too, because that will allow you to better serve the people that are so important in our lives.
Mm. Yes. Yes. And I really think there is a lot of potential for AI to help us to reach more people and to do more. But I also think we need to resist the urge to go into hyper productivity and just feel like we're working harder to do many more things, right? So embracing it as a tool to support us in helping people, to support us in reaching people, but resisting that urge to now just like zoom up and ramp up and feel more stressed than ever because we're trying to juggle more things because we can reach more people. There's that sort of sense of technology should help us, right? And not create more demands for us. And so being able to take care of ourselves in that, I know that it was sort of just before the holidays a couple of years ago that I learned about ChatGPT, and my nervous system was vibrating. Like there was excitement. And ChatGPT isn't the be all end all of AI. There's so much more, right? And we're going to talk more about some ways you guys are using AI here in a moment. But I remember feeling this sense of, oh my gosh, this is groundbreaking. Like I need to get on board. I also need to sit down and be calm and be intentional and be aware and curious and open, but it felt overwhelming because the possibilities were endless. And so it felt like this almost this pressure to like I need to get on board, I need to understand, I need to run with it. And I've since kind of keep slowing down and going, okay, what can this tool do for me? How can this tool help? How can we embrace? How can we improve what we're doing without a pressure to um, really be hyper productive.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And that's why I brought up the self care,
Yeah.
because if we look at, and this is global, many people are saying in our profession, I have compassion fatigue. I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
I'm seeing so many clients and it's hard. And here's where I think AI can help us. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to share the experience that we're having. I've been very fortunate to be conducting a research study in two places. Alyson's clinic, Capable Kids, is one, and Gallant Therapy Services in Maine is another, where we're looking at the feasibility of using a Coro AI, which is a gaming experience app with children. And this is to enrich occupational therapy, maybe give a little bit of a break to the occupational therapy practitioner between children that they're seeing. And this gaming technology in our study, we have the occupational therapy practitioner using it for about 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of their therapy. We have a control group and experimental group. So it's the experimental group that is using the Coro AI. They're using it over a 15-week period. Most of the children are seen once a week for about an hour. And then what I think is going to be really interesting to see the data, we haven't analyzed anything yet because the study is still going, is that we have the children encouraged to use the Coro AI app at home. So it's amplifying what we're doing in occupational therapy when we're seeing the child just once a week. And we're quite excited about what that home use will be like. We have the control group where the children are having their regular occupational therapy, and the work they do at home would be what we would traditionally send the child home to do. And so I don't have any results that are objective at this moment, but I can share with you some qualitative things that I'm hearing from the therapist. They're sharing with me from parents and what the kids are saying too. And we have some objective data that Allison actually has observed, and she'll share that in a moment, maybe one of the cases that you've observed yourself, Allison. But what we're hearing from the therapist is that it is helping them be more effective and effective in the way that the Coro app is actually giving objective data from the algorithm that it has. We could look at the child and estimate what they're doing. And now, by using computer vision, where the app is actually seeing the child, we're getting objective data that will be really helpful when we submit our documentation to show where the child is progressing or where the challenges are for the child as well. So, Allison, I'm wondering, could you maybe share what you've observed when you've seen some of your occupational therapy practitioners using the app?
Yeah, yes, I would love to. It's always exciting conversation for me. And it brings about to me this idea of two other places where we need to be brave when embracing this. And one is sometimes we have to be brave in letting some of those things go. Like we don't have to be totally in control of them, right? And that's hard for us. I know I personally struggle sometimes with thinking that there is anyone or anything that could possibly care and put as much energy and effort into what you're doing with the child as I am doing right at that moment, right? So letting go takes bravery sometimes, trusting that. And then at the same time, there's that bravery in trusting. And so, one of the most amazing things that we have seen just very almost in a very concrete manner is we have a child that's been coming to the clinic for a little over 3 years now. He was in a car accident and he has some pretty substantial remaining deficits. So there's a lot of tone, very limited mobility on his left side, particularly his left upper extremity. But one of the things that's great about him is he's always been a motivated child. So he's always been the child that we know what we send him home with, he's going to do, right? And he has a great motivated family. Also, they are regularly the reason that my clinicians and myself go up a couple pounds every few weeks because of all the sweets they send in for us. But they're committed, right? He's committed, they're committed. He attends sessions regularly, and we definitely have seen and continue to see gains. But there were certain things that we were starting to discuss and design because we really recognized that after 3+ years that this mobility that we were hoping to really generate in that left upper extremity, it likely wasn't going to happen. And he has been participating in Coro, and for the first time ever, we saw him spontaneously, intentionally lift his left upper extremity up into a full, his shoulder was at full 90 degrees. And one of those things that like everybody just starts screaming in the room because it shocked you. And he was kind of like, what? I'm just trying to get up the ladder. And there's two things that I think have been really great about this program Quora that's really helped this. And one is that it is occupation based, right? Our children, this is what they do. They game. They game on iPads and iPhones and the computer and various technologies. So he's engaging in an occupation that his peers are engaging in also. But when we send him home with it, because of the incredible technology and intellect that these sensors have, when he is doing something where I, in person, would say, oh, got to stand a little bit taller, or oh, no, don't move your shoulder while you're doing that, right? Like the very cues that I would give so that he's definitely doing the movement in a way that is correct and will produce the response we want. The AI, Quora is doing that for me when he's at home. So even though he would go home and do all his exercises, we never had a guarantee that it was really being done in the way that was going to best encourage the development of the skill, right? he could obviously, without even knowing it, be doing some modifications. And no one at home's really going to be able to understand or observe that. Quoro app does. And so not only is it engaging him, getting him excited, and making him want to do movements that he couldn't before, not because we're saying and he can see, like, oh, yeah, this is all about getting my shoulder up, but really because that's how I move my astronaut, right? But then on top of it, when we send him home, we know that he's doing it in the right way, with the right form, getting feedback so that we are reiterating that motor plan in the right manner instead of maybe building on some of the modifications or adaptations that they're just naturally doing. And then we're seeing it, right? So then we're getting this incredible report result that is literally evaluating and measuring and sharing with us information that we can't see with our own eyes, or that maybe just by human error sometimes has some inconsistencies in it. So I know that when we look at things like inhibition, there's this great one that we report on often for him of movement dissociation, right? So, like, I don't know, sometimes I think that he is dissociating his movement and he recognizes that's his arm. And then I'll have another clinician next to me that totally thinks, oh no, I can see how he's just kind of moving as a unit. Well, now these sensors are measuring it the same way every time, and they're telling me when he's dissociating movement, when he's not. And so it's really generating the therapists say we have better ideas for more targeted, more effective, more efficient approaches to the interventions that we're doing. We have this incredible consistent data that I can be brave and take vacation time because I know my fill in is going to be reporting on the exact same data because they're coming through the sensor collection. And then on top of it, I know that when they go home and they're doing that follow up, that if they're doing it in a way that is incorrect or inaccurate, that might build a maybe a more difficult motor plan, that they're being corrected and corrected in a way that I would correct them. And it has just I still we all just jumped screaming as he brings that arm up. We had not seen in 3 plus years, we had not seen more than maybe a 10-degree, and very rarely was it spontaneous while he was engaged in an activity. It was more like when he was really trying, when we were asking him to, more of that, like, sort of exercise way. Here, he's doing it, he's playing, and he's up at 90 degrees, and we're shouting. And I have to say, I think the funniest part of that whole moment was afterwards. He said, "You know what? I think you guys got something here. You should let other people try this thing out."
The children are really giving great feedback on what they want to see. So the games are an astronaut going to Mars,
Yeah.
and there's lots of different missions that they do. Parents are reporting that their child who perhaps wasn't doing that work at home is now asking for their mobile device right away so that they can continue on their daily mission. So it's become a win-win for the clinics, the occupational therapy practitioners working with the child, their self, and the family. So we're very excited, and I am eagerly looking forward to analyzing the data so that we can have objective outcomes that we can share with others.
That is really, really neat. I'm curious, how does Koro know what to watch for? Because I can imagine if you've got 10 different clients in a day, you're working on 10 different things. So, how does it know what the targets are and what to watch for?
The Coro games were designed by occupational therapy practitioners
Okay.
in pediatrics. So they identified the skills that they were seeing they were doing in occupational therapy. And they've worked with data science and computer science scientists to help them create this algorithm. And then the computer vision comes in with sensors all over the body that they're seeing. So we're not wearing any sensors. The computer vision is actually seeing this to give the feedback.
So there were occupational therapists involved in essentially working with these technical people to
Yeah.
then create something very useful. How
Yeah.
does one how does one get into that?
Yes. And I love that because here's where we have to be brave.
Okay.
And that's what I'm hoping listeners will hear. We were very lucky to begin to work with a company, Coro, that embraced occupational therapy. And one of the reasons it did, because the person who owns the company loves children and is married to an occupational therapist. So here's where talking about occupational therapy, always explaining, "Hi, I'm Karen Jacobs. I'm an occupational therapist," and explaining what it is over and over again. I'm sure this owner of the company's wife shared that with him over and over again. But one of the things that Allison shared at the beginning is that we're everywhere. We are the profession that sees the clients. In this case, it's pediatrics, but we're the profession that has these longer term relationships with our clients and the caregivers as well. And so we're there to be able to say, we need this or we need that. So I want occupational therapy practitioners to be brave and to contact companies that are beginning to create these innovations and say, "Hi, I would like to be part of your team. Maybe I'll be an advisor, maybe I'll be a consultant. I have these skills. I'm an occupational therapy practitioner and I have a distinct value. I'm ready to work with you." And that takes courage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to knock on maybe we knock on the door the first time, and guess what's going to happen after that? They're going to be after us to help them.
That's there's many places you can hear Eric Johnson and Caitlin Jones's story about designing and developing adaptive gaming for Microsoft, right? They literally Eric and some engineers were just kind of doing it for fun.
Yeah.
And there was like this call from Microsoft, like a hey, try it. We just want to see what people are doing out there. And they brought it and now Microsoft is employing multiple occupational therapy professionals in not just adaptive gaming, but like in all the spaces of how they are developing and designing products, right? And it took this idea of saying, that bravery, why not me? Why
Mhm.
not me? I'm doing it and as Eric always says, his clients were loving it and Microsoft had like, "Hey, here's a challenge to everybody." And so he was like, "Why wouldn't I submit?" And it's catapulted and I've always said it doesn't take long for anyone who is truly engaging with a member of the occupational therapy community to value it. Our value is easily recognized. It's getting in front, having the bravery to say, you actually have to see it and hear it. We have to be engaged in this reciprocal kind of experience because within minutes, people fall in love. They say, this is what we need. But if we don't make the call, if we don't send the email, if we don't submit for the job, then they're not going to know to call on us. And so we have to be brave and say, I'm going to submit it. And I always say, sometimes that means bravery and like submitting for that job that has nothing related to occupational therapy in the title and being okay with that, but just making sure that you're always describing yourself as an
Mhm.
occupational therapy professional. So go ahead, take that job of like design expert and say the reason I'm good at being a design expert is because I have the training of occupational therapy.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that it's so exciting too, because I've heard you guys say this. I heard you first talk on the OT Potential podcast, and we made sure not to make this a direct copy of that. So if a person wants to go listen to more of you guys speaking, go listen to the OT Potential podcast. But also, I'm hearing this from other people. So, at the CAOT conference a couple of weeks ago, part of the closing ceremonies, Rosalie Wang was talking about just this, that she is finding that in these AI spaces, they are loving the OT voice. They're loving what we have to bring to the table. They're really appreciating our contribution. And I love hearing this from different sources. It's not just you guys excited about this one project. This is, I'm hearing it in other places, and it's really in different countries, right? It's really
It's
exciting.
exciting. It's exciting, and we'll probably see an OT for OT with AI, and maybe we'll be the ones that get it going. I may. One of the things that I've been doing is I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I've put in my skill set artificial intelligence. And that has been the magnet of people who are interested in AI, people in AI, and people who are looking for people to work with them in AI. So people are reaching out to me now. I'm signing up to join other groups that are AI groups and newsletters. So I guess what I'd like to encourage, if this is something that you want to get involved in and you're nervous, you're not quite brave yet, that might be a really easy step to take. Not necessarily putting down that you have the skills in AI, unless that is true, but seeking out on LinkedIn and some of the other social media sites, people who are doing AI and bringing together this community of practice in AI in occupational therapy, but also interprofessionally. I think we can be part of this revolution and be out there and creating the products that will really make a difference in the lives of people that we serve.
Well, that is a great call to action. I like it a lot.
Yeah, Karen and I were recently talking about this, I think with just one another. And, we were really saying that AI in healthcare has the ability to be what the calculator became to the accountant. This idea that that the banker no longer, they're not doing most of the math on their own. My husband was a banker prior to us opening the clinic. That's when he was brave. He was brave when he quit his job to jump on my dreams. But he would say to me often, "You actually do math like in your head and on paper much better than I do because I'm always using the calculator and it frees your brain so that you can pay attention to some of those other more complex things." Right? AI, it's going to be the calculator to healthcare delivery. And so it is going to be a revolutionary change. It's going to transform the way people can interact, engage, seek, and find healthcare and the delivery of it. I think when there are revolutions to be excited about that can bring about such optimal opportunities, the experience to enhance and expand equity, then why not be the early adopter? Why not come in? And why not put our names right along with it? That it is not just an AI revolution, it's the OT and AI revolution.
Yeah, and Allison, I'm going to do a little bit of a reveal. Allison and I are going to start a blog, and we'll have it on Capable Kids. And we're going to just explore all the potential in AI from our lens, but we want to share, we want to also call to action again, others to share with us. And I know you'll let us give our contact information at the end, but we really would like to bring everyone in. We want a community of practice. We want all of you to be part of this. And just like you started out, maybe you can feel overwhelmed right now. Just put a little toe in and see how it feels. Be brave.
And
Absolutely.
we're going to take opportunities to also share where some of the difficulties that were encountered by individuals. It's a practice where we can learn from one another. And so we'll certainly talk about what were some of those learning curve pieces. I joke regularly, no one in my personal circle would tell you that I'm like a tech savvy person. That was like never it wasn't really my interest. Um, it wasn't really, I was never the one that could set up your TV or set up my own computer. But there's something beautiful about AI that takes it outside of tech, and that AI is this, it's like my own version of occupational therapy walking alongside of me. It's not just technology, it's an opportunity to do everything I already engage in better and stronger. And so you can be that person thinking, "Well, I don't know, I've never really been into tech or that." Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. AI is an opportunity for us to embrace new ways of doing things that make us stronger as the person we already are.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
Allison, I love that. It's in some ways our thought partner.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I also want to do a shout out that Allison is quite a few years younger than me. And we're at two different, really, generations of being occupational therapy practitioners. And I think that it's not just for people who are coming out and entry level or 5 years into the profession, it's for all of us, any generation, any age of an occupational therapy practitioner. We can all learn and have AI as our thought partner to enrich what we're doing.
And it's here. So whether we resist it, it's going to take a lot of energy to resist it. It's already integrated into so many parts of our lives. And so why not? Yeah, why not use it as a therapy partner? Why not use it as an assistant? Why not use it as that objective extra pair of eyes or ability to extend our reach to help clients more frequently and in different environments? And yeah, I think that is really, yeah, really, really beautiful call to action. May I ask you questions that I ask everybody at the end of the OT pod, Brave
Okay.
OT? Okay. What does being brave mean to you?
I've put a lot of thought to being brave because I have to say, when I started my career as an occupational therapy practitioner, I wasn't brave. I didn't have the courage that I see evolved in myself over the years. And I've been an occupational therapy practitioner for 45 years. So for me, it helped in becoming competent in what I was doing and becoming more confident. I do think being brave encompasses more than just like a physical courage. I think it involves speaking out, having a voice against injustices that we're seeing, taking calculated risks now, acting despite being fearful. And that's what I'm doing now. And for me, it was an evolution. It took a while to become, but I think being curious has helped a lot. And also finding my voice and feeling like I have something to say, but also looking at what's happening in the world and making sure that I'm not a passenger, but I'm a driver. And that's really important to me.
Beautiful.
Oh, that was beautiful. Wow, Karen.
But you haven't seen me drive yet, Allison.
Yes, I rode in the car with you for the
Yeah, but you haven't seen me put my
pedal to the metal.
yeah. So I'm a fast driver. Some of those decisions came from that.
So when I think about what does being brave mean to me, being brave means I'm scared. Every time that I'm brave, I am scared. And so it's about being scared. It is about those risks and failure and finding your voice in each one of those. Finding your voice in your fear, finding your voice in the risks, finding your voice in the failures. Because I think for a long time, we have really approached things from speaking from our strengths and our successes. And that that's not necessarily the way that we can continue to evolve into an effective anything, profession, society. I think being brave is trusting yourself and not looking for anyone else to validate what you believe or what you think or how you want to move forward. And I think being brave is engaging in the discourse and the dialogue and saying, I'm brave in not just trusting myself, but trusting that what others believe is what is right for their path right now. And that we can exist in a world where bravery comes from accepting what is mine and where I am, and accepting that can be polar opposite of what is you and where you are. And that bravely we can still just walk the journey of life together. Um, Brave to me, I guess, is just the idea of always having that awareness that life is scary, but scary is not bad.
Yeah.
Scary is growth and scary is brave.
And you
Yes.
have given us a brave space.
Mm.
Mhm.
And we thank you for your podcast that is allowing us and others to be brave and to listen and to have more courage.
Thank
So
you. I appreciate that. I think that it is, we do perceive fear to be bad, and our nervous systems are designed to respond to fear and get us to stop moving toward the thing that makes us fearful. And in that way, it's obviously perceived as negative. But ultimately, without fear, you aren't being brave. If you have no fear, you're just doing something, right? And so that sense of there needing to be that sense of, okay, this is scary, this is taking a risk. But at the same time, I'm a scientist and I am collecting data. And I am approaching this as an objective, curious party. And this is how we observe our clients, right? If we only see them succeeding at things, not struggling with things, we don't know what to help with, right? We need to see where they're faltering or where they're struggling. And we get that, right? We get that. And it's in my consent form. I say to people, I work in adult mental health. And so I often say too that the real magic of what happens here is actually what you do in between our sessions. Like we're going to work in our sessions to build skills and problem solve and come up with strategies and ideas, but you have to go use them. And I want to hear how it went. And if it doesn't go well, I especially want to hear about it because I learned so much more about what didn't go well than what did. So please don't tell me, yeah, I did it, it was fine, even if it wasn't. I want to hear about it. Like, that's where the nitty gritty, juicy problem solving, let's get in there and see, okay, well, what made that harder than this? And what, okay, now I see the influence of that. How do we manage that? And none of that is failure.
no,
All of that is data. That's where we thrive.
yes, yeah. And what you're describing is the lessons that we learn. And I think if we embrace that construct more, we might be happier.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree with you. Okay, the next question is, what is something brave you've done recently?
I was thinking a couple of things. One was how I've embraced artificial intelligence. And then I was thinking about personally, I decided that I want a legacy for my family where my children and grandchildren can experience living in a country outside the US. I did that when I was a child. My parents had us living in Italy, and as an adult, I lived in Iceland on a Fulbright, which changed my life. So I bought a little teeny piece of land in the Azores, and I'm building a house there. Eventually, I'll probably make it into an Airbnb or something like that. But that was really brave, and it was intentional and very scary. And
Mm.
it isn't built yet, so I'm still in that fear mode of being brave. So I'd like to encourage people to think about being brave in all aspects of their lives.
Mm.
Mm. I have largely been one of those individuals that doesn't like to share excitement about work that I'm doing or things that we're bringing into the clinic until I have like incredible validation that it worked, right? And so the idea of even sharing the research that Karen has been conducting in capable kids and some of the things that we're seeing, I just that was brave for me. I it's scary to say what you're excited about or what you're trialing early on in that phase. And I was excited, and my clinicians that work at Capable Kids are amazing, and they were excited and they wanted it right away. But I feel an ownership to engaging. I don't want people to perceive that there was some error on their part, right? So I never want to talk about anything until I know that it's going to represent the work that they do so well. And it's been a brave space to talk about AI, even thinking about just my appreciation of AI being in settings. There's a lot of chaos and noise around AI. There's a lot of controversy and discourse. And it's been real bravery to say, I am excited for this. And so I think that's one place that I've been really expressing bravery. And I would say another place that I've been expressing bravery is personally, I had been thinking about this, is accountability without invalidating me. So I've been really entering some spaces of dialogue and discourse. And sometimes it's in meetings with members of the OT community where we're trying to make decisions. And sometimes it's in my family room with my children. But I have often found that I can say I'm sorry and I can take the accountability, but then I personally begin to invalidate myself. I made that error, and so I withdraw and I don't continue to give my contributions. And lately I've been trying to take on that space of bravery to say, I'm sorry when I have done things that were errors, mistakes, or harms. But that's still okay for me to continue to be an equal member of this conversation. And so that's, I think, personally where I have been trying to journey in my bravery.
Mm.
And I think that it's reflective, like Karen said, it's reflective across personal and professional. I think bravery to me right now means taking care of myself, meaning it's okay to not read email for a day or not answer a phone call. That's what bravery looks like. And then being able to not have to say, I'm sorry for that, to say, I was taking care of me and I'm hopeful that we could connect again soon.
Allison, you said something that's really important, and it's something I went to a workshop today about work-life balance. It's setting boundaries and being brave in setting boundaries. And that's something I always feel I'm a work in progress. So we can help each other.
Yes. So, what I'm hearing in what you're talking about is, in both of what you're talking about, is that sense of really leaning into knowing what's important to you and pursuing that. Really, also this sense of, I'm hearing themes of emotional intelligence in this as well, right? And that sense of being able to release ego and really stand in uncertainty and willingness and openness. And I think a great leader or somebody who's really grounded in themselves and who they are can say, I don't know. And that's okay, right? They can say, oh, I messed up and I'd like to continue and figure this out and learn from this experience. And that doesn't make us weak or fallible. That makes us actually more respected and stronger if we can say that. I much more respect somebody who can acknowledge their errors rather than profess to know everything and not acknowledge any difficulty. And it's interesting on the boundary side too. So in my Activate Vitality program, I created this program because I really love helping super smart, super sensitive people who get stuck and often get stuck in overthinking and fear of failure and perfectionism and that sort of thing. And so I drew in a crowd. And what's really interesting is the stuff we end up working on is a lot around boundaries, a lot around releasing some of those people pleasing things, standing in our values and our integrity and making intentional moves rather than reactive moves that are fear driven. And so I'm using a lot of acceptance and commitment therapy actually to empower these OTs to stand tall and strong in what's important. And that's really uncomfortable, and really lean into the curiosity and vulnerability and work and live intentionally. And so I've heard all of those themes come out in what both of you just said.
Thank you. Thank you. I made a big decision about my life 20 years ago to be intentional. And that has been, you wanted something more recent about being brave. So 20 years was far away. But I think the intentionality is extremely important. And it takes time to reflect, to have that intentionality. And journaling helps a lot, being observant about the world and stepping back and saying, what did that mean to me? And I do think another thing that's really important is social participation, having friends, having colleagues, being part of the world, engaging in the world, whatever that might be, is critical.
Yeah, it's a good
So I
life.
think that helps being brave too.
Yeah. Yeah. What is something you would like to see OTs be a little bit more brave about in the coming years?
I want them to be advocates. Obviously, I want them to be brave in looking at what's really important for themselves and the clients that they serve. I'd like them to open themselves up to the opportunities in artificial intelligence and see how they can be a driver, not a passenger in this, and be part of this, I think, revolution that we're seeing that can really make a difference. And some of the things I shared before, being lifelong learners and making sure there's work life balance, which takes time and bravery to do, and challenging the status quo is really important. I'd like people to be educated consumers. There's a lot going on in the world now, and there's so much information that's accurate and a lot that may not be accurate. And I think really making a concerted effort to look at where their values are in making some decisions and what they're seeing happening in the world.
And I think that in doing all of those things, I want us to be brave in, as you said, not always having to be liked, not always having to be the people pleasers, but as Karen said, be an advocate. And sometimes an advocate sits you in a space of discomfort or uncomfort for a little bit, but be brave in that advocacy. I want us to be brave in our attempts of doing the advocacy and doing the work. And yeah, I would echo Karen again. I want us to be brave in taking care of ourselves. We're really good at taking care of others. I want us to be brave in taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other as a community. No one will ever know the cognitive load or what we carry with us day to day, like our colleagues who are doing it too.
Mm, yeah. Yes. Absolutely. How can people reach you if they would like to learn a little bit more or have a conversation?
Sure. Easy to reach me on email,
Okay.
kjacobs at bu.edu. And I'm on just about all social media. Still a little reluctant to go on TikTok.
Fair.
And likewise, I'm usually quite accessible via email, and that would be AD as in dog, Stover, Stover, at pitt.edu. And I would say also, I'm usually available on most of the social media platforms. I would say that LinkedIn is probably the one I spend the most time on. So please reach out, connect, send a message. I love to just sometimes start there and catapult the conversation to other places.
Wonderful. And when you have a link for the blog that you're starting, will you share it and I can add it to this podcast episode?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are www.capablekidsrehab.com. And when you go on there, there'll be a tab for blog. and click on that.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Well, OTs, that wraps up another insightful episode of the Brave OT podcast. A heartfelt thank you to our incredible guests, Alyson Stover and Karen Jacobs, for sharing their wisdom, experiences, and tales of courage with us. Today's conversation highlighted the power and potential that lies within our profession. Whether it's advocating for ourselves and our clients, embracing new technologies like AI, or simply taking those brave steps to do what matters most in our personal lives. Remember, you can follow Alyson and Karen through their upcoming blog on the Capable Kids website, where they'll continue empowering the OT community with valuable insights and support as they venture into this application and research in AI. Now, at the time this episode airs in early June of 2024, I am accepting OT practitioners into the Activate Vitality program for only a couple more weeks before pausing enrollment. I'm not sure how long the pause will be, to be really honest. In reflecting on my life, I noticed a need to heed my own advice and create space to focus on what matters most. I'm creating space by pausing my sales and marketing efforts for a while so that I can fully focus on the clients inside the program, my health and well-being, and my mental health OT practice. I absolutely love being with this gorgeous group of humans in the Activate Vitality program who elevate each other on every call. It has members like Jessica Miller, who shared this beautiful review. She says, "The Activate Vitality program changed my life. Carlin, the community, and ACT helped me to listen to my body and take so many courageous steps. I quit my traditional job in corporate healthcare and created a unique OT business model that fits my life, my interests, and my skills. My career now adds to my vitality, and the community continues to support each other in unwinding our self-worth from our productivity. I'm honored now to offer a monthly embodied practice, nourishing your nervous system, to the Activate Vitality community." This is just one more way Carlin has deeply listened and has helped encourage me to step into my authentic self. I highly recommend the program to any OT entrepreneur looking for support in creating or adjusting their business to match their internal values and find a path that is honoring and sustainable to your true self. Thank you, Jessica. If you'd like to join us, please set up a clarity call with the link in the show notes before the great pause on June 15th, 2024. Now, if you're enjoying the Brave OT podcast, please consider leaving us a review and sharing the podcast episode with your friends and colleagues. Together, we can continue to build a brave, informed, and connected occupational therapy community. Until next time, be brave, OTs.